roguelike genre is one that has grown in popularity over the last decade, and with that increase in popularity, we have seen a dramatic increase in the number of games being developed in the genre. Today I'd like to highlight 10 games that I believe to be some of the best in the genre. This is, of course, just my personal opinion, and if your favorite game didn't make the list, let me know down in the comments. I'm always up for a good chat. With that being said, let's dive right into it. Number 10 on my list may actually surprise a lot of you, and that is Heroes of Hammerwatch. This gem is a pixel art action roguelike where you delve into a dungeon and make your way through a procedurally generated set of floors and collect items and level up to enhance your character. There are 7 different classes that each have different abilities. My favorite is definitely the Wizard. They have a lot of AoE and do amazing damage. Heroes of Hammerwatch also has online co-op, which is a big plus as it allowed me to play it with my partner, and together we put in over 150 hours into this lovely little game. The environments are awesome, and each of the floors has their own set of puzzles to solve, and most of them have a risk-reward aspect to them, making you take damage if you fail to solve them correctly. It should be mentioned that you also get to upgrade your town as you play through the game, unlocking different shops and various upgrades that make you stronger at the start of your runs, allowing you to make it further and further into the dungeon. The gameplay loop definitely tickles that one more run mentality, and will have you diving in over and over again. If you don't mind the pixel art aesthetic, and are looking for a fun game to play with your friends, this one should definitely be on your list. Heroes of Hammerwatch is a great time, and while it may be a bit on the older side, I definitely enjoyed my time playing it. Sitting at the number 9 spot is Astral Ascent. I've done a full review of Astral Ascent here on the channel, and I'll leave a link to that for you if you haven't heard of this one. Honestly, I don't normally enjoy platformers because, to be honest, I just kinda suck at them. That being said, the fluidity of the combat and movement in Astral Ascent is absolutely fantastic. It can become a little hectic when you're playing co-op and have a bunch of abilities on the screen, but they have added some settings to the game that help with the clutter. The basic premise of the game is that you are attempting to break out of an astral prison, and in order to do so you have to beat the Zodiacs, who are enslaved to the Master. There is a lot of personality in the characters, and the game is voice acted, which is a huge plus. Honestly, it gave me a lot of Hades vibes, and I would say it's sort of like Hades and Dead Cells had a love child, which is awesome. I'll quickly talk about the combat because that is where this game shines the most. As you progress through a run, you will pick from a variety of spells that are specific to the character that you've chosen. You can have up to 4 spells at once, and they rotate based on where they are in your lineup. This adds an interesting twist to the combat where you have to weave in auto attacks to build up your resource, and then you spend that resource to cycle through your spells. This combat system can feel a little weird at first, but I really enjoyed it once I got used to it. The aesthetic for the game is absolutely gorgeous, and with co-op, it is an absolute blast to play. Coming up on the number 8 spot is a game that has a very special place in my heart, as it was the one that got me into the deck building genre, and that's Monster Train. Developed by the same people that made Inkbound Shiny Shoe. Monster Train has a wonderful aesthetic, and clearly draws a lot of inspiration from Slay the Spire, but has a tower defense element built into it that I think is really well done. One of the main differentiators that this game has is that unlike Slay the Spire and a lot of the games that came after it, this one is played with lanes that add an additional layer of strategy to it. Your cards contain units in them that you place in the lanes and then buff them. Combat is then played out automatically, and you are ultimately trying to defend through waves of enemies without your pyre being destroyed. There is a good variety of clans in the game that each have their own specific cards that can be selected, and you have the ability to pick a secondary clan that adds even more variety. My favorite clan is the Stygian Guard, which is an aquatic themed clan that relies very heavily on spells. Monster Train is one of those games that is easy to get into but difficult to master at higher difficulty levels. The amount of strategy and planning required to beat the game is quite intense. This is a really fun game, and I would recommend that anyone that is interested in tower defense or deck building games give it a try. You won't be disappointed. Sitting in the number 7 spot probably won't surprise anyone, as it honestly took the internet by storm a couple of years ago, and that game is Vampire Survivors. This game probably doesn't require much of an overview, but I'll give it to you anyways. Vampire Survivors is a fairly minimal game where you walk around killing enemies with auto-casted abilities that you select throughout the course of the run. The goal? Survive for half an hour and defeat Death himself. While the premise is quite simple and visuals are very minimal, the key to the success of the game was the low barrier to entry, as it was being sold for just $5 when it launched, and it has really amazing sound design that gives you a rush of dopamine anytime you pick up a chest or level up. I mean, just listen to it. Apparently the developer was working for some online gambling sites before he transitioned to creating Vampire Survivors, and it really shows, but in all the best ways. There isn't much more that can be said for this game. It has a good selection of maps and secrets to uncover. The builds can get fun and wacky really fast and allows you to live out that ultimate power fantasy as you wipe entire screens of enemies at a time. Vampire Survivors should also get credit for popularizing an entirely new subgenre of roguelikes. Number 6 on my list is also a relatively new release that honestly took me by surprise, and that's RoboQuest. I played RoboQuest a bit during its development and wasn't really too impressed by it. However, it caught my eye as it got closer to release, and I decided to give it another try, and man was I blown away. RoboQuest is a movement shooter roguelike that does an absolutely fantastic job at making you feel like you are speedrunning. There's dashing, multiple jumps, rail grinding, and honestly, it is a ton of fun just to run around the map and shoot stuff. The roguelike element comes in the perks that you select throughout your runs that grant buffs to each of the different characters' abilities, as well as guns that have randomized stats on them. It is so satisfying to get a really good gun and turn baddies into Swiss cheese. There are a decent number of classes available, and the overall pace of the game is breakneck. The art style is really fantastic with cel-shaded graphics that give it a Borderlands feel and comic book style cinematics. Did I mention that it has co-op? Yeah, it has that as well. That paired with a pretty substantial difficulty curve, and you've got yourself a really good time. This is one of those games that no matter how much time I have in it, I'll keep coming back for more, and I'm really excited to see the future updates that the devs release, as this one is one of those titles that is aging like wine. It should be noted that they also dropped a little hint that they have a new update coming, and I think it's gonna be Dead Cells related. Before we make it into the top 5, I wanted to add a couple of honorable mentions. These are both games that I felt like I needed to recognize because they are both fantastic games, but I honestly just haven't played either one enough to give it a spot on this list. The first of which is going to be Dead Cells. I can say without a doubt that this game is fantastic. Given a bit more time to play it and get better at it, I think it could easily make its way onto this list. Dead Cells is generally regarded as being one of the best action roguelikes, and it almost feels like sacrilege to put it on the honorable mentions list, but here we are. The other honorable mention is Spiritfall. This wonderful blend of Smash Bros. And Hades has a lot going for it. It's visually gorgeous, has snappy and fun combat, and a really neat meta progression system. I was honestly really surprised at how much the combat system hooked me. They did such a good job, and Gentle Giant deserves some recognition for that alone. The different weapons all feel unique and have vastly different playstyles, making it really easy to get lost in this game for hours. Now, on to the number 5 spot, and this is where it's gonna start getting a little spicy. Or predictable, I'm not sure which. The game with the honor of starting the top 5 is none other than Slay the Spire. There's so much to love about this game, and like many of the games in my top 5, it is one of the OGs that paved the way for its predecessors. There's no arguing the fact that Slay the Spire popularized the roguelike deck building genre, and there's good reason for that. It has some really quirky visuals that are pretty awesome, and the sound design is absolutely top notch. The game design is absolutely fantastic as well. It is so easy to pick up and understand this game at a surface level that you'll likely be able to make it through Act 3 in your first couple of runs. However, at later ascension levels, it really tests your strategic abilities and makes you weigh every decision you make, which makes it incredibly difficult to master. I honestly can't praise this game enough. Despite being 7 years old, it holds up incredibly well and is still a lot of fun. Before we move on to the number 4 spot, I want to politely ask you to hear me out and wait to pull out the pitchforks. In the number 4 spot, we have Gunfire Reborn. Now I know what you're thinking. How could Gunfire Reborn possibly be higher on this list than Slay the Spire? And to that I say, every list needs a plot twist. Sure, it's a little weird and quirky and it has its fair share of problems, but I believe it has just the right amount of jank. The gunplay is a lot of fun. There is a good variety with a ton of different weapons and scrolls, as well as a good amount of characters to choose from. No matter what I am in the mood to play, I can find something to scratch that itch. I believe Gunfire Reborn is the best first-person shooter roguelike. This game really nails that feeling of breaking the game and letting you have fun with it when you manage to get the right synergies and really pop off. This is something that some games will shy away from, but I think that is one of the amazing things about roguelikes. I enjoy that feeling of breaking the game and maniacally laughing as I slaughter everything in sight. There are so many good things that I can say about Gunfire Reborn. They have consistently released updates since their launch, providing a steady flow of new content, both free and in the form of DLC. It's no wonder that I've managed to pour over 250 hours into this game, and I have loved every minute of it. Alright, let's move into the top 3, and I'm going to say that these games are likely not going to be surprising to most of you. Kicking off the top 3, we have the very highly acclaimed Hades. Supergiant captured lightning in a bottle with this one. It is an absolute masterpiece. Literally every aspect of this game is so polished, and that is reflected by the love that it receives from the community. The combat is snappy and fun on the surface and difficult to master. There is a good amount of variety in the upgrades and the weapons, not to mention that I'm a sucker for Greek mythology, and they did a fantastic job portraying the characters and really making them come to life, which is no small feat. It has amazing dialogue and character building that is quite uncommon in the genre. The music, oh man, don't even get me started on the music. It is so good. I absolutely love the soundtrack. The visuals are top notch with the hand-painted graphic style that Supergiant has perfected over the years. Hades really is a culmination of all their hard work in an elegantly crafted roguelike that will have you attempting to battle your way out of the underworld for hours on end. It should be known that I really went back and forth on the top two, and I will say that it is a really close call, but I finally settled on The Binding of Isaac in the number 2 spot. This one's a classic and really helped pioneer the resurgence of the roguelike genre. Some of the reasons this game is so beloved by a large majority of the community is because it has some really clever game design, and for its time it was quite innovative. It took the best parts of the previous iterations of the roguelike genre with the procedurally generated rooms and items, and added a twin-stick shooting aspect to it. There are so many items in this game that no two runs are going to look the same. And one thing that it really nails is allowing you to organically unlock items as you achieve feats within a run. This gives you a good sense of progress, despite the fact that you probably keep dying to the most stupid bullshit. Something that I think The Binding of Isaac does that is quite different from the more recent additions to the genre is not putting descriptions on the items. Sure, it can be a bit annoying when you pick up soy milk for the first time and completely sink your run, but that's part of the fun. It makes you learn the game through trial and error. The boss design is a lot of fun, and the story may be a bit limited if you compare it to something like Hades, but it still really hits hard. If you haven't played The Binding of Isaac after over a decade since it was released, what are you waiting for? Join Isaac in crying your way all the way to the depths of hell, so Satan can drink your tears and laugh in your face. You can thank me later. Now for what you've all been waiting for. What is my favorite roguelike? And sitting in the number 1 spot on this list is Risk of Rain 2. This is a game that captivated me from the very first moment that I booted it up. Risk of Rain 2 is an absolute masterpiece, and there's not a single thing that I would change about it. It has a great cast of characters with various playstyles, fun and interesting items, amazing music, beautiful environments, and frankly, it is just a damn good time. The co-op is some of the most fun that I can remember in my time gaming as an adult, and even tops some of my childhood memories. It's a lot of fun to fall onto that first map and start your journey, killing weird alien monsters, collecting gold, opening up chests, and as time goes on, all of your items get displayed on your character model, so by the end of it, you look like someone threw their junk drawer at you and it all just magically stuck. I love that with the DLC, they added the ability for you to unlock run modifiers that can completely change the way the game is played. And the modifiers are actually interesting to unlock, unlike a lot of games which will just give them to you after you beat a certain difficulty level. Like most of my favorite games in the genre, Risk of Rain 2 does not shy away from allowing you to absolutely break the game. And since it just continuously gets harder and harder and spawns an absolutely ridiculous number of enemies, it can get to the point of actually destroying your PC as well. Just kidding, kind of. However, despite occasionally trying to blow up my computer, Risk of Rain 2 is a game that no matter how many times I boot it up, I know I am going to be having a ton of fun and really enjoy myself, and that is what gaming is all about at the end of the day. That does it for my top 10. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure your list probably differs quite a bit from mine, and that's okay. If your favorite game didn't make my list, hit me with a recommendation. I always love finding new and fun roguelikes to play. If you did enjoy the video, leaving a like and subscribing to the channel would go a long way in helping to grow our community. As always, I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.